Good morning, and welcome to the Alameda Connection on KCSM HD2. I'm your host, Scott Piehler. Every week on the Alameda Connection, it's my pleasure to bring you the best of the Bay Area's island city. From the legend of Atlantis to Jules Verne's groundbreaking 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, to the real-life adventures of Jacques Cousteau and the discovery of the Titanic, the world beneath the waves has held a fascination for humankind for generations. As island dwellers, we are well familiar with what goes on top of the water, but did you know that Alameda is also home to one of the leading lights in the exploration of undersea? It's true. If you've been to Alameda Point, you've no doubt walked, driven, or rode your bicycle by the Deep Ocean Explorer Store, a dive shop located across from Almanac Adventureland. But did you know that behind that dive shop is a factory floor that makes cutting-edge submersibles that explore the very depths of the world's oceans? Liz Taylor is the president of Deep Ocean Exploration and Research. It was my pleasure to sit down with her and talk about what goes into the making of these amazing vehicles, as well as the things you can find in the dive shop, even if you're not a diver. That's Liz Taylor, the president of Deep Ocean Exploration and Research. A fascinating half hour this morning on the Alameda Connection. Well, good morning, Liz, and welcome to the Alameda Connection.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Most people, your passersby, will know you from your storefront, so that's just kind of your public face, the dive shop, right?
That's right. The Deep Ocean Explorer Store at DOER.
Okay.
And yes, it is our public-facing side.
That started in that was in the middle of the pandemic, wasn't it?
It was kind of a bold time to try to open a public-facing space, but we just had people that started to show up and ask if we could help them to explore closer to home.
Okay.
They couldn't travel, and we could still fill air cylinders and help to service equipment in a very safe and sanitary way. And we have always taken care of our first responders.
It's funny because I was out at this shop and I saw a couple of the AFD guys come in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they come through and try to get their dry suits fixed, get different gear for swim tests and so forth. So we are an island after all. Let's
go into the history of DOER. We're going to come back to the dive shop a little bit later on. So this was founded by your mom?
Yes, it was founded by my mom, Sylvia Earle. She's a National Geographic Explorer at Large currently.
Okay.
It was originally their Explorer in Residence, the first one. She kind of left DOER at that point in time, about 1992, to take on that role. But she had founded the company in 1992, and I worked alongside her really since the inception to help people explore the ocean.
What was the impetus for the founding of the company?
One of the first companies she founded, she left to take a Senate appointment for NOAA.
Okay.
She's the first female chief scientist for NOAA back in 1990, and it was a Senate appointment, of course, so she had to divest herself of the company. And when she came back, the company was kind of a shell of what it was when she left. Yeah, it was a oops. And so she decided to kind of restart, started as a consulting company, and then my husband and I took it from there into more of the hard technology side. So we were building a lot of submersible vehicles and assisting many clients that had integration issues with existing tech that needed help. So that's how we kind of grew it from family garage on into a small space here in Alameda, and then on into the Alameda Marina, where we occupied a small building and then eventually the big marquee building, currently being redeveloped as a brewery, ultimately over to Alameda Point.
You come by diving fairly naturally. You've got two parents who are marine scientists. Let's talk about your introduction to the water.
I don't really recall a time when I wasn't in the water or on the water, at the water. Both parents very wisely had someone else actually teach me swimming lessons. That's a very good thing to do. And it was very lucky for me. And it's one thing I really work for today is to try to advocate for water competency with kids, because so many kids grow up not knowing how to swim.
Right.
And as adults, we don't know how to swim. And it's such a fundamental life skill that I had the opportunity to learn early on, spending a lot of time tri-coastal between Florida, Boston area, Massachusetts area, and of course along the California coast.
Where in Mass? I'm from that area, so I have to ask.
Boston. And then we spent a lot of time out at Woods Hole and along the coast there, of course, with marine scientist parents, you know.
Oh, so, of course you're going to be at Woods Hole. That only makes perfect sense.
And at the Museum of Comparative Zoology, I had the fortune to be kind of a little kid hanging out under the desk in the museum. I was watching ants one day. This big guy kind of got down on his hands and knees and kind of crawled under the table with me and was observing the ants. And only later on did I realize it was E.O. Wilson.
Oh, my goodness.
And we had a great discussion about ants.
So you must have bumped into Bob Ballard at some point, I would imagine.
Yeah. We definitely, Bob Ballard some people call him SpongeBob because he is so good at getting all the government funding for research.
And for some listeners who may not know who Bob Ballard is, if you don't, just look him up because he's credited with discovering the Titanic.
Exactly.
And he was kind of it in that field.
Right, a Navy oceanographer.
Do you remember when you first realized that you shared your parents' passions? Because oftentimes children can go one of two ways. They share their parents' passion or they don't want to be anywhere near it.
Well, I think that we were just always brought up, my brother and I were brought up on and along the water and developed kind of a real reverence for ocean life as wildlife. And it wasn't just sort of going out to grab something to eat.
Right.
And my dad, certainly as an invertebrate zoologist, would sometimes serve up some of his specimens, mostly like oysters or clams, things of that nature. But we really got to know fish as wildlife the same way that many people grew up, recognizing the birds in their yard.
Right.
Then we recognize fish. And so I always refer to the fish as the birds of the sea and really encourage people to look at them as wildlife. It's just kind of by default, Both parents traveled a lot, spent a lot of time with the grandparents. We were fortunate in that way. Rehabilitated a lot of wildlife growing up, a lot of seabirds and actually fish sometimes, and other reptiles, amphibians, anything that kind of needed help ended up on my grandmother's doorstep. So there was that kind of rehab element to it. And then being kind of pulled out of school and going on lots of different expeditions. So it just really came by naturally to just follow that path of trying to help teach people about the ocean.
It sounds like a happy childhood, but not a typical one.
Yeah, it's very atypical. It was very tough because even starting from elementary school, being pulled out sort of mid-semester, part of the time in Florida, part of the time in Boston area, then maybe finishing out the year in Los Angeles area. So it wasn't really the typical thing. I think today, we have some schools that do year-round schooling or independent schooling. And so it felt a lot like that, where we just kind of leave, drop, and go. I think a lot of parents would face much more friction today from school districts saying, wait, you can't do that. But we did, and we just kind of adapted to it.
Now, you had mentioned earlier with your dad and invertebrates, you had mentioned oysters, and I had a thing for later, but we may as well get into it now since it's been mentioned. I'm a graduate of the University of New Hampshire. University of New Hampshire has been doing a lot of great work with oysters reclaiming the bay. And some of that's going on out here, isn't it? Oysters as filtration system.
And really fighting sea level rise.
Really?
Oh, 100%. Oysters, they're incredible animals alive, so much more valuable alive than on the half shell. Each one of those little guys can filter at least 50 gallons of water a day, which is pretty impressive. And increasingly, of course, they are accumulating things like microplastics and other kinds of contamination that make them maybe less appealing to consume right here in the bay. But Alameda used to be called Oyster Island because of the abundance that we had here of the little native Olympia oyster. They were essentially wiped out by dredging and, of course, the hydraulic mining up in the Sierra that washed all of that sediment down into the bay and smothered those oyster beds. There's a huge effort today based on basically following some of the things that are going on the East Coast, the Billion Oyster Project and others, where they're really looking to bring back not just any old oysters, but the oysters that are native to the areas, and then trying to reestablish them through, usually have to kind of elevate them onto an oyster ball or some kind of a bioconcrete structure to inoculate it with the oyster spat, and then help those little guys to grow into great big resilient oysters.
We have people who will do a cremation and then turn that into some sort of underwater ocean structure. Is that something that an oyster could grow on?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. As long as it's textured, and you could absolutely become part of a living reef, which is kind of a nice, nice way to transition.
There's a sales pitch here. Whoever comes up with it, just thank me. That's all I'm asking for. Let's start with the heavy tech side of the company. For someone who's not in the technical field, not in the sciences field, what is your elevator pitch for what you do in the back? Because you were nice enough to show me around the factory floor, and it was like walking onto the bridge of the USS Enterprise. There was stuff going on there. Wow.
Yeah, we basically solve all problems underwater, and it can be a very broad scope. So we build a lot of underwater robotic vehicles. We build human-occupied submersibles and autonomous underwater vehicles, and then a wide variety of scientific sampling tools. So a robotic vehicle is just that. It's a robot. It's attached to the vehicle with a tether to the surface. So you get real-time video and sensors and so forth that goes on. We do a lot of sampling from the ROV. We build them primarily as science class vehicles. Some people may be familiar with the little tiny, I guess they call them like the little open ROVs or little video arrays and things like that are deployed out of very small craft for just kind of a flying eyeball application. But these systems that we build are really designed to serve as multi-mission platforms. They can do video, sonar, sampling tasks, manipulation tasks. We use them for infrastructure inspection and sampling, scientific collection, and search and recovery operations are kind of some of their primary tasks.
Are your ROVs autonomous or piloted from remote?
They are piloted remotely from the surface, so we spend a lot of time reconfiguring the ubiquitous 20-foot sea container into control vans of various kinds.
Okay.
That's where the pilots and the scientists would kind of sit inside the control van on the deck of the ship, and then they can see what the robot is doing, either thousands of meters below the surface.
This is basically some of the tech we saw in James Cameron's The Abyss.
Yeah, some of that kind of stuff. And then we're working with Tiburon Subsea on an autonomous underwater vehicle, which is basically a mapping and sampling tool that is not attached with a tether. It's just programmed to go do its job and then comes to the surface and we collect it. Finally, of course, the marquee sexy equipment is the human-occupied vehicle. Right. So we have a couple of those that we're building for the French Polynesia, the first couple that are going to go there. We did a 5-passenger one that is residing in the world's largest aquarium over in the Middle East.
Okay.
Of course. We've built all kinds of different systems that operate off the submersibles as well.
When you were showing me around, you were talking about the ones going to French Polynesia, and you used the term Blue Hope Zone, if I'm getting that term correctly.
Well, it's a hope spot.
Hope spot.
Hope spots.
Let's talk about what those are.
So hope spots are areas around the world. There's 168 of them currently, including San Francisco Bay, where people from the community have felt that an area was worthy of recognition and either protection because it's in really good condition or restoration because it's in relatively poor condition. Like San Francisco Bay. They kind of come together with other community members, and then they will need to find a scientist or scientists to kind of help them build the scientific rationale for protection or recognition. And they fill out an application on the Mission Blue website. And then that gets processed and reviewed then by kind of a higher peer review through the IUCN, which is International Union for Conservation of Nature. And if all of them agree, then it becomes recognized as a hope spot. In the case of the San Francisco Bay Hope Spot, that idea was born right here in Alameda. Teacher Sylvia Gibson, who's here locally and works with Alameda CASA, she kind of hatched the idea. She came in and she says, Liz, why don't we have a hope spot here? And I said, I don't know. Do you want to do it? And
well, when was that?
That was probably, I don't know, maybe like 6 years ago, maybe a little longer. She's very diligent about it, and she peppered me with a bunch of questions and kind of helped her out with it. And then we went over to the Romberg Center in Tiburon. The scientists there worked with Sylvia Gibson, and they put the application together and submitted it, and lo and behold, we're a hope spot.
How many vehicles do you make in a year?
It varies widely because scientists don't have tremendous budgets, and when they get a budget, which is like every 20 years, it's very hit and miss. It's not, we're just very, very project based in that way. We'll take on a system and take on a major build, but then that vehicle tends to be kind of in the fold for its whole lifetime. It's not really just sort of like building product and cranking it out the door. It's more like building relationships and trying to build community and capacity building within a community.
Who are your customers? Are we talking academics? Are we talking, say, an oil company who needs to look around on them? Who's coming to you?
So it is a lot of universities, individual scientists, a lot of bigger construction or engineering firms that need to get a handle on what the lay of the land is ahead of putting in an underwater pipeline or tunnel, looking at existent infrastructure. We see a lot of very serious degradation happening because of sea level rise. We're watching seawater kind of push in to buried infrastructure, kind of up drain pipes and backing up into city streets. And it's deteriorating rebar, incredible rate.
And for those who don't know, rebar is that stuff that's in concrete. It's reinforcement bar, and it does rust.
Yes, and we saw the results of that in Florida a couple of years ago when a whole apartment complex collapsed.
That was the cause of that?
Yeah, it just deteriorated rebar
Okay.
over time that no one was really inspecting. And it just let go and catastrophically. So those kinds of things can happen. So we build a lot of technology for going up inside of tunnels, pipelines, around bridges, things of that nature. So those kinds of groups will come in and work with us. We work with environmental science companies, coring of sediment or sampling sediments, looking for both their stiffness and also looking for contamination before they do things like dredging or pile driving.
What's a project that's come across your desk and you said, this is fun?
Well, they're all very interesting because every single time it's having a fairly complex problem and trying to figure out the best solution that's cost effective. But I guess one of the fun projects is that we built an ROV system and a submersible some years back for Paul Allen. He notoriously loved to just collect video information. His mother was a librarian, and he just loved to collect these vast video libraries of subsea animals and different archaeological sites and things of this sort, and to take some of his guests there with the submersible that we built. One time I had the phone call from the ship's captain. He's like, Liz, the boss is coming to the West Coast. He wants something interesting to do. He wanted to go see this old airship that had crashed off of the Monterey coast, and Bari was not going to give up the coordinates, so we had to kind of scratch that.
Oh, no.
And so instead, we realized that Richard Branson had kindly put up money for Scripps Oceanographic Institute to tow a dead whale offshore because they wanted to study the decomposition of the whale. So it's called a whale fall. And They wanted to really study this quite closely. However, when they towed it out, it was not really engineered that well. And the whale ended up going deeper than they were able to access.
Oh, no.
So it had been sitting there for a while, doing its thing, decomposing as it does. The octopus, the vessel that this ROV and submersible lived on, was coming. And so I was like, okay, let's go look at the whale fall. So I called our contacts at Scripps and they're like, guys, just trust me. Go down to the dock tomorrow morning early. Bring your coolers, bring your whatever you need to preserve specimens. Just go down there and wait. And they did. It just a leap of faith. And then here came the very bougie launch, picked up the scientists, took them out. And they were just sort of gobsmacked that they, showed up at this yacht. And then here's a 4,000-meter ROV system.
Oh, my goodness.
And they went down and they sampled this whale fall. And they discovered 2 new species of bone-eating worm.
Really?
And then most incredibly, they found a bacteria that was effective against the flesh-eating bacteria, which they started to work on in the laboratory. So it was a really pretty cool opportunity to kind of bring groups together in a really meaningful way with somebody who has the means and the capacity to do good. That really wanted to do good, and then to have the scientists benefit from it.
It strikes me that you're playing literally in the same waters as James Cameron's hobby, as he calls it.
Oh, yeah. So we helped him with his full ocean depth submersible as well.
Really?
We put the manipulator arms on it. Of course, he had to put a full ocean depth Rolex watch on his manipulator, so the full wrist rotation, so he could tell the time. But yeah, so we've helped a lot of people to just get to deeper spots. But again, it's very project based, so they'll only call when they really have something specific that needs doing.
This got to be a fairly insular community. I mean,
It is. It doesn't happen every day, for sure.
Are there any movies that actually get deep sea right?
The Titanic movie did show the use of the Mir submersibles, which are the Russian submersibles. And what people didn't see were the 2 deep rover submersibles that were built by my mom's original company.
Okay.
And they were always in the background because they're so nice and stable and steady that they were basically giant camera housings.
Okay.
And so they were like the cameraman, always behind the scenes, but getting all the shots. So those subs were used extensively in that film. And it did show, the wreckage of the ship and kind of the level of difficulty in accessing those kinds of depths.
If you can share, do you have any opinions that you can share on the Titan implosion?
Well, that was just, a really bad combination of hubris and arrogance that led ultimately to disaster. So, there's a lot of known engineering that everything pointed, don't go down that path.
Right.
Material science is always evolving. Some time in the future, maybe things will evolve to a point where you can use some advanced fiber materials and things in certain applications.
Right.
Through the process of building human-occupied submersibles, there's a lot of rigor that goes into it. So when we build a system, it's always done with third-party peer review the whole way along.
Okay.
So we typically work with the American Bureau of Shipping, and they will come through right from the beginning time of our initial design ideas, and they vet it and cross-check it all the way along so that we know when we build and deliver a product like these subs for French Polynesia, It's on the cutting edge of tried and true. Everyone within the kind of oceanographic community pointed out like all the reasons why not to do this. And I was actually pretty excited when the vehicle got struck by lightning in the Bahamas. And I'm like, okay, you've got to pay attention now because a lightning bolt has come down and hit this thing. This is a sign. But it still wasn't enough to prevent the guy from pressing on and basically, lying to people. And so it was just a really awful situation all the way around.
2016, you moved to Alameda. The company sets up shop. What brought the whole works to Alameda?
We were originally in the garage in 1992. We actually were starting to collaborate here in Alameda. We're just steadily growing and running out of space. And we really liked the Alameda Marina because of its proximity to the water. And it was kind of this very curated ecosystem. Right. The owners really looked for kinds of small businesses they could bring in that would get along together. So did a lot of projects out of there. And one day the harbor master came over and he's fiery guy, Wayne Milani. And he came kind of storming in and we thought, oh my God, we parked outside the lines. What horrible thing have we done? And he's like, you kids, you need to move into the big building. We're like, okay, there's 5 of us here. The building is huge. What are we going to do? We have one phone. Could you break it up? And he's like, you're not listening. We want you in the building. And so they worked with us. And we moved into that big building over there. And we were there for 20 years roughly. And then we were dislocated.
Oh, okay.
by waterfront redevelopment for housing.
And so when was the move to the Bay?
So we moved over to building 41, roughly 2016-ish.
Okay.
It was kind of an awkward transition because we didn't have very much time to depart the one area, but the space in that building wasn't really ready for habitation yet. Okay. So we were fortunate to work with the tenants in that building at the time who were favorably inclined to work with us. And so we were able to kind of, cobble our way across.
Shifting focus just a little bit. If my math is right, you've been diving since you were 13?
Technically, since I was about 9.
Okay.
Right, I received the instructions to breathe normally with a scuba tank, and that was over in Hawaii. My mom was on a collecting trip with the California Academy of Sciences. So we were over there collecting algae, and they were getting some fish for the aquarium, for the original Steinhardt Aquarium. And so that was kind of when I started.
Still love it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, every dive is different. You always see something new every single time on the water.
How does one become elected to the Women Divers Hall of Fame?
Well, you have to be nominated by other Hall of Fame inductees. But basically, it's just showing competence in diving and then showing a real commitment to helping others explore the ocean. I guess the altruistic side, really just doing good deeds that help the ocean and help people explore.
2-part question. Favorite place to dive and favorite place to dive in California?
Some of the nicest diving I've done has been in and around Tonga.
Okay.
It's really kind of interesting diving, and you sometimes get to see really nice humpback whales there. Ooh. And in California, I really kind of like diving around Catalina Island down south. It's just because it's just so accessible for people. They have a really nice dive park where you can just kind of go down a set of stairs and you're right in a kelp forest. And so it's really a great example of a community that's thought about direct working access to the water, which is critically important if you want people to engage and be able to explore where they live.
You've been at this for 30 plus years. What gets you out of bed in the morning?
I think it's really the magnitude of our ignorance around the ocean.
Okay.
And you just have to kind of get up and think about so much to do. I mean, the ocean is really the basis of the planetary life support system. And they're not 7 seas, it's just one ocean.
Right.
And it connects us all, that drive to get a grip on the magnitude of what we don't know about the ocean and how important it is for everyone to take better care of it.
Let's switch and talk about the storefront. First of all, obviously you sell dive equipment. What else?
We sell a lot of different products that are just designed to help people be better stewards for the environment. So it could be things like laundry strips, so you don't have a big jug of water.
Right.
Here's your laundry soap.
They work, folks. I use them.
Yeah, they're great. Reef safe sunscreen. I love it when people come in and they're looking, I need some sunscreen, but I don't dive. And I'm like, okay, but do you bicycle? Do you ski in the wintertime? That's all water that you're going over. Maybe frozen state, but it's still water. And what happens when you go home and you take a shower? Where does all your skin product go? It goes right out into the ocean eventually.
I did pick up a tube of sunscreen from your shop, and it's really good.
Yeah, it's great. It's another Woman Diver Hall of Fame created that brand.
Okay.
She is just really tired of what we put into the ocean. We cannot continue treating the ocean like a supermarket and a sewer at the same time.
Right.
There's so much that goes out into the ocean, like in addition to sort of cosmetics and skincare products, but it's old medication. People flush it down the toilet. Where does it go? So then you get salmon that are like, oh, I'm too relaxed to spawn, you know? I'm on Prozac, you know? And it's detectable levels. It's shocking.
I mean, we laugh, but the only other reaction is to cry. I mean, that's...
Yeah. You've got to really think about it.
What are some other things at the shop that a non-diver might go in, hey, I could kind of use this?
Yeah, we've got books, we've got towels, we've got travel bags, you know, any number of things that divers clearly use, but, you know, anybody else can use it as well.
You offer classes at pretty much every level for divers?
Yeah, so we do everything from basic open water all the way through instructor, and then we also do first aid, CPR, O2 provider, all those kinds of courses as well.
Excursions. They all go some fun places.
We do.
How does that work?
We collaborate with the number of different resorts or operations in different parts of the world, try to find places that are making a difference and they're doing a good job for the environment. So we'll take people to Bonaire, Curacao, of course down to Catalina, the cenotes down in Mexico, and other places like this that are just very interesting and where the local people are trying to do a very good job of environmental stewardship.
Let's switch to Alameda. What do you personally like about Alameda?
Well, it's an island. It's surrounded by water. And of course, it's got a great community, a lot of great schools. You know, we work with a lot of the schools, the public schools, in addition to St. Joe's. I've been one of their science fair judges for years now.
Oh, fun.
And which is a great way to connect with the kids from the area. I mean, the kids are the future. You know, what are we going to leave for them? How can we do a better job of making sure that the lift it's going to be a heavy lift,
right,
if we're going to have a comfortable existence. So what can we do to kind of help them to not have such a hard time of it?
The average person on the street, what are, let's say, 3 or 5 steps that they can take to help the oceans?
If they're a homeowner and they have a lawn, they can get rid of it.
Okay.
The things you do around the house, critically important. Everything you put down the drain, any chemicals you put in the yard, really try to eliminate that. Replant with native plants, put in a rain garden to help slow the flow of debris to the bay. We host a coastal cleanup every second Saturday of the month with Alameda Casa and the Wild Oyster Project. And it's unbelievable the amount of stuff that comes off the roadways and right out into the bay. We've had everything from chairs, pallets, traffic cones, lots of tires that are drifting around out there, bottles, microplastics, just all manner of stuff that it all comes back to us.
You have guests coming in from out of town, and you have to take them out to 3 meals at 3 different restaurants in Alameda. Where are you going?
We really like Asina up the street. You know, it's a great little place. The chef knows that whenever we come in that he will not tell us about the fish special. Or he's going to get a lecture on why the fish is special, but why it shouldn't really be on the menu. We like Sakura because it's a sushi restaurant, but we never eat any of the fish.
Okay.
We go back to the root of sushi and really talk about how it was a method for preserving vegetables. Fermented vegetables and rice was the foundation of sushi. We have a good support there and a lot of great veggie options.
Wonderful.
We do like to go keep it close by, and we just go across the street, get to the Almanac and the Scolari's food truck because they have some great plant-based options. And a wonderful variety of beverages.
How can people keep up with what's going on with both the shop and DOER in general?
Just come through and chat with us. We're always happy to tell sea stories. I also co-host a program called Dive In with Liz and Sylvia, which is hosted by the Ocean Elders.
Okay.
And so we have a YouTube channel there. And,
wonderful.
And so we have a lot of timely and international guests that come on, and we talk about all kinds of different things.
Well, for my listeners who may follow the show on my YouTube channel, we will make sure to link to that channel so they can.
Excellent. That would be perfect.
Thank you very much. This has been absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to tell sea stories.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Liz Taylor, the president of Deep Ocean Exploration and Research, for spending time with us this morning on the Alameda Connection. If you'd like to keep up with the latest from Deep Ocean, there's a few ways to do it. If you're interested in the offerings of the dive shop, including their classes and excursions, their website is deepoceanexplorestore.com. Their Instagram handle is Deep Ocean Explore Store. If you're interested in the more scientific side of things, you can follow Deep Ocean Exploration and Research at doermarine.com. And you can expand your knowledge of what's going on in the oceans by following the Ocean Elders channel on YouTube. That's OceanElders. Ocean Elders on YouTube. Next week, we literally go from salty to sweet. My guest will be Chef Henry Awayan, the owner of Whisk Cake Creations and the author of the Ube Baking Book, Decadent and Delicious Recipes with the Filipino Purple Yam. From Tucker's Ice Cream to Food Network to his own shop that went viral when they created a toilet paper cake in the middle of the COVID pandemic, Chef Henry shares his lifelong love of baking that began with his first cake at the age of 10. That's next Sunday morning on the Alameda Connection. As always, thanks to the California Historical Radio Society for providing our recording location for our chat with Liz Taylor, and thanks to Bill Hart for our theme music. The song is called Beachside Isle, and it's from his excellent album, Watch the Sky. I'm Scott Piehler. I hope you can join me next Sunday morning at 8 a.m. on KCSM HD2 and streaming from kcsm.org for the Alameda Connection. I'll talk to you then.